Hi, I'm Paul Ford.
And I'm Rich Ciotti.
And you're listening to Reqless, R-E-Q-L-E-S-S, the podcast about how AI is changing the world of software and maybe the rest of the world as well. And let's play the theme song. And then you know what, Rich? You know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to read you a poem.
It's Monday, dude.
It's Tuesday when they're listening. Everybody's already ready. Everybody's ready for a poem.
All right, let's go.
Reqless.
Okay, this is a poem by C.P. Cavafy, Greek poet, written in about 1898.
Okay,
it's called Waiting for the Barbarians. You ever heard it?
No.
Okay. So, it's going to take about 3 minutes. Everybody settle in.
Go.
Just open with a little poetry.
The floor is yours.
What are we waiting for assembled in the forum? Well, the barbarians are due here today. Why isn't anything going on in the Senate? Why are the senators sitting there without legislating? Because the barbarians are coming today. What's the point of senators making laws now? Once the barbarians are here, they'll do the legislating. Why did our emperor get up so early? And why is he sitting enthroned at the city's main gate in state wearing the crown? Because the barbarians are coming today, and the emperor is waiting to receive their leader. He's even got a scroll to give him, loaded with titles with imposing names. Why have our two consuls and praetors come out today wearing their scarlet togas? Why have they put on bracelets with so many amethysts, rings sparkling with magnificent emeralds? Why are they carrying elegant canes, beautifully worked in silver and gold? Because the barbarians are coming today, and things like that dazzle the barbarians. Why don't our distinguished orators turn up as usual to make their speeches, say what they have to say? Because the barbarians are coming today, and they're bored by rhetoric and public speaking. Why this sudden bewilderment, this confusion? How serious people's faces have become. Why are the streets and squares emptying so rapidly, everyone going home lost in thought? Because night has fallen and the barbarians haven't come. And some of our men just in from the border say there are no barbarians any longer. Now what's going to happen to us without barbarians? Those people were kind of a solution. So this poem has nothing to do with Elon Musk or DOGE. Just didn't pop into my mind.
You needed foreboding background music as you were reading.
It didn't pop into my mind while I've been watching the news. Okay, so, we'll come back to the poem a little later in the podcast, Richard, but let me tell you some stuff that's going on. Right now, we know... have you heard of DOGE?
Yes.
Okay.
Efficiency.
Department of Government Efficiency. It's a backronym created by Elon Musk and his minions, and they're going into the big federal departments, the Treasury, which is where all the money is. Like, we actually are back to ancient Rome kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The General Service Administration, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, on. And they're gutting U.S. aid. They're sort of gutting a lot of stuff. And Elon Musk's minions, literally minions, former Tesla and SpaceX employees, are in there kind of in the code bases pulling stuff out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's...
It's sort of unclear what's going on.
It's incredibly unclear what's going on. It's unclear if they can change things. There's federal injunctions. So this is, a kind of flood the zone moment, as typical of our current governance model in America.
Yeah.
Which is we'll create a lot of chaos, and maybe they won't notice this other thing going on over here. And just
okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the overall broad strategy of this thing, get ready. Once they have gotten in there and fixed all the code, as they're kind of playing the Twitter playbook out here, what technology do you think they're going to use to really make the government efficiency efficient? What are they going to do to make us really run smooth and get everybody on the same page?
AI?
Yeah, you got it, baby. Wow, you pulled that out like a McKinsey
but
consultant.
That's not even clear what they mean by using AI.
Well, they do mean, GSA, the General Services Administration. They do. They're going to have GSAI.
GSAI. I like that.
Yeah, it's going to be a chatbot, and it's going to help everybody make better decisions.
Okay.
They're going to feed...
I saw something about this. It wasn't clear to me what it meant. I think it's still very murky right now, and I heard AI in the mix because it's like, well, AI will bring efficiency.
Well, I think if it had been 5 years ago and we were back in this situation, we would be talking about crypto.
Yeah.
But the idea that crypto is the solution has moved away, even though it's bigger than it ever was. It's funny
Yeah.
to me, like blockchains rarely come up as the answer anymore, but
Yeah.
everybody still likes their crypto money.
Yeah.
So now AI is the solution to everything. So what are they saying they're going to do? They're saying there'll be a chatbot that'll help General Service Administration people, I don't know, access things. It's very hand wavy, right? And then they're going to use AI to analyze all the contracts,
Okay.
and it's going to find where the fraud is.
Okay.
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 So that's something right there.
Okay. I have a few thoughts. Some, I think, veer away a bit from maybe the core topic of this podcast, but I want to share them anyway.
Yeah,
if
go
that's
for
okay.
it. Yeah.
I'm going to first be a bit optimistic for a split second.
I mean, this is you.
This is me. Government is probably, undoubtedly, terribly inefficient and bloated. Mm-hmm. It's just government. I mean, I don't think that's a shocker to anyone.
No, and in fact, I mean, for context, one of the there's lots of documentation on that, and so like the DOGE people are going to these budget reports that show tens, hundreds of billions of dollars. In
Sure.
Very, sort of, they don't always know where all the money's going.
Look, here is the reality we should all just embrace. We are a fabulously wealthy country that is just it's just gobs and gobs of money, right? And with gobs and gobs of money comes a lot of unnecessary process and ceremony because there's just too much money. Like if you had, and we talked about this with constraints, with DeepSeek and constraints. If the U.S. government had like real limitations, then you sort of are forced to figure out how to make things work with like PHP and with less people. But because we're so absolutely flush with money, there is just a lot that's caked on.
Well, we're a weird country, right? Because there are parts of Mississippi that might as well be Afghanistan.
That's true, and that's too bad. But if we're talking about the federal government, and it's siphoning of federal income, federal taxes in general.
I mean, for the last 100 years, you get that federal job, you're eating good.
You're doing good.
You're
right?
in the union. You're doing good, and that's actually that's kind of a cornerstone of American society. Once you get that federal job, and they're blowing that up.
Yeah, they're trying to blow it up. Let's see how it goes. And what you have is the institutionalization of processes that don't even look wrong. They're just sort of like part of life. It's just part of the process of renewing your driver's license or part of the process of getting building permits. It's become calcified into the system in such a deep way that no one pauses to think, well, gosh, that's that's how it was done in 1958. But why are we still doing it that way? Because there's all kinds of...
Well, sometimes also they jam, and they're not going after this system. They jam slowdowns into tax collection. They jam slowdown. The number one is anything related to gun registration is pretty much still paper.
Yeah.
Because they don't want any searchable database.
I get the need for paper in a lot of cases, like dangerous circumstances or serious consequences if things go wrong.
Or just trying to slow down. Like, they don't want a national database of gun owners.
I get it. And guess what? I know I sound like I'm making a case. I'm about to do a plot twist in a minute. Just give me a minute.
Get Socratic.
And guess what, Paul? Guess what?
It
It is nearly impossible to dislodge it. It's
is?
nearly impossible. You kind of have to take a sledgehammer to it. There's just no other way. Wars do it.
Financial crisis.
Financial crisis does it. A pandemic does it. Like, it's typically, 5 to 7 years to get a drug through trials? The pandemic forced it in 6 months, 8 months, whatever it was. Why? Because it was absolute necessity in that very moment. And the truth is, what's happening here is a massive disruptive force is coming into a system that is just made out of concrete and stone and marble that has been there for a very long time.
And has all the money.
Now, let me take a shit on all this.
Okay.
First of all, I have two issues. One is data and information and personal information. I'm all for sledgehammers. I've built businesses based on a very subtle velvet sledgehammer. I believe in them because I think change is hard and sometimes you just got to ram through. But people's information and data is actually critically important. And so you do need to take a beat.
I can actually contextualize you for people. You do take a swing, but you have empathy. And so you have this kind of empathetic sledgehammer. And I would say, without a doubt, when you and I started working together, one of the things we decided on was we'd emphasize growth always. We're not in there. We were never the consultants that you brought in to end the department.
No.
Right? And you do try to protect the people there. You do care about the jobs that are you try to create jobs wherever you can.
That's right.
So there's a kind of sledgehammer where you're like, look, and there's also another element of like, I kind of see a crisis coming if we don't make some changes right now. I know you don't want the change.
Yeah.
And I know you don't want the crisis, but if we have the crisis now, we'll have less crisis later.
Yeah, and
we're not seeing that.
Well, this leads to my second more important point. The motivation behind this and the tone behind it.
It's just destruction, man.
Well, it's not even that. It's worse than that, and it's more insidious than that. The issue, it reminds me, you said it. You said it very casually, which is interesting, because you just sort of zipped by due process. You said we're going to go find fraud. When you start with where the evil is by default, you are bringing shades of McCarthyism back into the picture here. By essentially going in with the preconceived idea that there is evil lurking and we must find it, that is much, much more dangerous. I'm worried about people's data, but what is more dangerous is the tone and the assumption that you are fighting bad people and evil people. Like, I'm not saying they are saintly by any means, and there's probably it's a vast world. There's probably fraud somewhere.
Of course there are tens and hundreds of billions of dollars of fraudulent payments in the United States system.
And so that lack of due process and the tone behind it, and there is absolutely no conversation about, like, we're going to bring these new efficiencies in, and then we're going to retrain people so they can work better, so the government can work faster and better. This is none of that right now.
This is the danger of AI. It's basically just another sledgehammer wrapping the other sledgehammer.
Yeah.
It's a double sledgehammer. So I'm going to hit you in the head with this, and you're going to hear about how you're a fraud and everything you've done sucked and you're a bad employee and you didn't make a better government just like the one in my head.
Yeah.
Which is, classic CEO activity, which is to be like, I imagined it last night and it's not done yet. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But not really how the government is supposed to work, because we're supposed to have a process.
Exactly.
But then B, we're going to get in there and we're like, okay, you know what? Whatever I do, whatever I break, I'm going to be able to fix it with the new thing. And there's no process. So it's pretty ugly. I
think there's a few things going on. One is, look, you're allowed to appoint people. I mean, the truth is, this reminds me of Jared Kushner. Like, he signed giant peace treaties for the government.
I mean,
you're allowed to appoint people. So
the guy won the election, whatever.
No, it's not that. He could also appoint people.
No,
so
he
appointed this guy. Now, he appointed a guy who happens to have a particular style around moving quickly. That is a style that has actually worked in business. He's trying it here in government. I don't mind attacking inefficiency and old systems. I don't mind it. I actually don't. I think it is jarring and it is bruising, but it can be good. It can actually be good. I think when you go in like, we're going to find the criminals and find fraud and this and that, that's again shades of McCarthyism. It's shades of essentially it's driven not by inefficiency and saving money, which I want to get to in a second. It's driven by ideology. And when you're driven by ideology, you're in an emotional place, you're in an irrational place, and you're in a demonization. You're demonizing people. And people's lives were ruined in the 50s with McCarthyism. Like, literally entire lives were destroyed. And the guy...
a lot of our listeners are just actually not going to know what McCarthyism is. Go ahead and take just 1 minute and explain what happened.
Yeah, Joseph McCarthy was a senator, I think, from Minnesota.
Yep. And
it's at the height of the Cold War. There's a lot of paranoia about communism and the communist threat.
Red Scare. And there are actual communists in America in a way that there kind of aren't today.
There were communists in America.
People in Hollywood and so on. There was an element of like a far left pro-Soviet Union vibe in America.
That's right. So what started happening was people from all walks of life, writers, doctors, scientists, professors in colleges, roped in and asked if they were communists. I mean, I'm talking about things like they were rummaging through your garbage. They were like invading your privacy.
Objectively a witch hunt. Like we have to find the commies wherever they are.
A witch hunt, right? And it got to the military, and that's where it ended, actually. They started to question the loyalty and allegiance of generals and soldiers and whatnot. And it was so ugly, and it got to such a grotesque place that it actually ate itself alive. And it was an embarrassing black mark on American history, in fact, if you look back on it. And it even roped in homosexuality.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, who was McCarthy's little buddy?
Roy Cohn.
Who was Trump's mentor?
Who is Trump's mentor. And it's a period that is like not a cool chapter in the history books. It's looked back on as like we kind of lost our minds and we almost destroyed ourselves because of it. And this guy actually ended up in a very, like McCarthy himself, ended up in a very sad place.
Yeah.
What is fundamental to it, and you're seeing shades of it here, is we've lost trust in ourselves and in our own fellow citizens who maybe aren't working great or maybe disagree. But if we're reaching a point where ideology is driving agenda in such an emotional and irrational way, that's an ugly thing. It never ends well.
We're seeing it. We're seeing it. We are really, I think, like, we're tending to go straight to, like, this is it. This is step one of fascism. It's all over, etc. And maybe that's real. I don't know what's real anymore, right? But what I would say, I think or maybe it's not. Maybe this is kind of where we're going to end up and things are going to slow down. I don't have control over that, but I think what you're saying is very, very real, which is the due process. It's not just them swinging sledgehammers to own the libs.
Yeah.
They've created an ideological framework where the government itself is the enemy, and they have no compunction about wrecking long-standing systems that have a lot of constituents, make sure that veterans get their health care, that kind of stuff.
There's a way to do it. There is terrible inefficiency and terrible bureaucracy in the government. There's a way to do it. There needs to be some balance around it. And we can also come out and say, look, these are civic servants that have been doing their jobs for 40, 50 years. We're going to take it a step at a time.
There's no thank you for their service. There's literally,
I'm not even saying thank you.
You have 5 minutes to get out the door. That's what we're doing right now.
The world changes. Yeah, right? Exactly. So there's a lot of let's wipe the slate clean.
So let's actually, I think there's a thing you can do here kind of with your legal bearing that'd be really helpful for people, which is, let's say the Department of Government Efficiency was operating in a kind of highly structured, accountable way.
Yeah.
But with the same mandate, on fire to change everything.
Yeah.
Got to get in there.
Sure.
Don't slow me down. Okay. Yeah. Describe how and there's some ideology there. Okay. Describe how that could work, so that people can start to compare. Like, what is the delta between, all right, you guys won and you want to blow up the government a little bit, here's how you do it, versus what's happening today, which just seems to be drunken monkeys running through halls.
Okay, I'm going to talk about this for another minute, and then maybe we can come back to AI, because this is an AI podcast. But I'll say this for 1 minute.
Well, don't forget, I think this is totally relevant, because the thing that they're going to tear down here, then they're saying they can rebuild it with AI, and I think that's what everyone is going to hear in the world. So we have to kind of straighten this out a little bit.
So you're asking, okay, let's say, hey, go, move fast, clean things up, but what's the proper way to do it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think there's a few things going on. First off, a lot of this stuff is appropriated through laws. They're in place because laws exist.
So Congress would be one
thing. The laws created these institutions, A, and B, future laws afterwards give them budget, so they fund them. So USAID gets put together. I think Kennedy stood it up.
I swear to God, they have the House and the Senate. They could have gotten a rubber stamp in 2 weeks.
Too slow, right?
2 weeks.
Too much drama, and I think...
Well, the problem is also the Congress will then lard it up with pork barrel stuff. So
they'll lard it up, and that's real, and that's a thing. So first off, I think you're going to start to see a lot of stay orders, mainly because you can't flout a congressional mandate through law that has come down through law.
A stay order meaning a federal judge says you stop. Well, we're seeing that now.
This out.
Yeah.
The other, I think, is information which seeps into national security. Here's what a lot of people aren't talking. They're like, oh my God, my data. My data's not interesting. I'm just a dude from Brooklyn. Right?
I've seen it. It's not interesting.
It's not interesting. Yeah. What is not just interesting, but potentially quite dangerous is you've got this dragnet that is getting cast wide and far, and there is sensitive knowledge in that data. There are people with sensitive information. There is security considerations and whatnot.
We have given a lot of little Discord kids the ability to access some of the most critical information in the world. And they are every single one of them is a delicious bonbon for a foreign agent to pluck off. Do you know how many Russian women are freshening up their makeup right now as they go to parties in D.C.?
That is where you really have to start to worry, because these organizations, even aid organizations, are actually sources of tons of intelligence for us and whatnot. So it is a little too much, right? And so I think you're going to see the courts continue to step in.
I mean, we've been rendered vulnerable by this. I do agree with that.
Yeah, so it's a sloppy mess. Now, is there a way to do it? There's a way to do it. You have to have a little bit of, you have to have like put someone else in place that is also partnered, that is making sure that certain things are moving in a certain way, in a certain process, and you carve out certain information that just can't be, you just don't go there for now. Maybe we'll get to it in a year, right? But I think what you have here is
boring.
Exactly. And I think what you're seeking out is results and headlines and attention, and so that's just a sloppy mess.
Distraction. They put on the circus.
Yeah, I mean, let's go to AI now for a quick second.
Yeah, so now we've torn it all down to the studs.
Yeah,
and now we're going to rebuild it with AI.
Yeah. So
I'll talk for 1 second, which is like it's too soon. Like even if everyone was actually like revert, I don't see a lot of actual sort of good intentions out there. But let's say the intentions were good. It's too soon to jam this technology into like something critical.
You still should read the code of a color picker you had AI generate.
For the government.
Still, like, we are just now trying to get our bearings on the power of this thing and kind of how unwieldy it can be.
The right place to be skipping steps is where we are, which is a startup. And, it's a small group of people who are really experimenting because we want to accelerate the hell out of software. Good for us. This is our marketing podcast, right? The jamming the message in, even in this context.
Yeah.
But that's where it's supposed to be. It's you and me saying, we're going to place some bets that we can skip steps and get away with a little bit of murder because we think we can build a hell of a business. Woo, good boys. That's great. But that is not the deal that people make when they pay their taxes.
I think, look, I want to come back to the optimistic side again, because I do think AI is going to be great for government. I think it's going to be great.
I mean, honestly, I'm sort of sad that they're doing it this way because I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think things can become more accessible. Information can be more readily available. I think there's all kinds of things.
I will give you one example where probably $100 billion could get saved, which is you have this enormous amount of federal contracting, huge legacy code bases. Legacy code, I'm really seeing patterns where you can write a bunch of tests for the legacy code, translate the legacy code to the new code, and make sure it all runs.
Like and old COBOL code or whatever.
Exactly. You can and get things into languages like Java or modern frameworks, or even things, Richard, like more critical technologies like Ada or Rust, where you have memory safety and you can really sort of take care of what the computer's doing. There are things you can do with AI with computers and a bunch of programmers that are so specifically good at where the government gets bogged down.
100%.
And the other tricky thing is there's just going to be intense capture of all of the value of that by places like Booz or Deloitte. And it makes me really anxious because I think like these big firms are going to be like, you guys don't get to touch the new stuff because you're the government. You don't ever get to play with the new stuff.
Yeah,
we'll do it for you. And
maybe on the other side of this mayhem that we're seeing right now, the likes of Booz get checked. Like I'm going to go back to my optimism for a split second here. Mm-hmm. I remember the Obamacare online story.
Yeah.
They probably used like an old school contractors to put together the Obamacare site.
They absolutely did.
And he couldn't stand it up, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened was it actually reminds me of like the young bucks showing up and using modern technology to stand up a scalable Obamacare. Like the Musk teams, I know everybody's making fun of these kids, but the truth is it took probably younger people who had a more aggressive posture towards pushing code and modern technologies to get Obamacare up. And that did happen. It was I know some of the people at the firm that was brought in to do it. In fact, some of them worked for me.
Yeah.
Right? And so those people were, I can tell you, without a doubt, self-taught, wickedly sharp comp sci computer programmers.
And I think everyone would accept, maybe a little full of themselves, like a little bit like, I know the right way to do this.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. But you know what? They were desperate that like he promised like universal health care and the website didn't work.
It was a bad one.
They had to leave DC's system of like government approved contractors to get it done. That right. Happened, right? And now what you're seeing here is probably really, really talented people are swirling around. The problem is there's no rule book and there are real consequences and there's also shades of a witch hunt. Just carve that out. Bring that efficiency in. We want it. It's needed, but there's a way to do it so that people don't feel like they're getting chased with torches, A, and B, I want to know that my government is airtight sealed. Like, I need to know that.
The thing that you're describing, kind of like that dialogue went out of the world with like John McCain. Like, we're just not there anymore.
I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, you might be right. And I think other systems will have to kick in, like courts and Congress and other places.
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. This is where we are above our pay grade. I do think AI is going to be great for government. I think it's going to be great for government. I think it's going to be great for almost all sectors.
I mean, we may need to just focus on the states for a while.
Yeah,
sure. Let federal may need to work itself out for a bit.
It's a sloppy mess right now. It's the Wild West right now, right? And so that's real.
But I do think they're going in at the wrong altitude. Like, if you really wanted to make government more efficient, like saying we're going to slop a bunch of AI on systems that we grab the control bit, is not a way to actually create more efficiency. I don't see the path from A to B.
Yeah, I don't even know. You know what? This is the other bit, and this is, I think, my last rambling point, is we just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's unclear whether they want to purge systems.
Rich, we know what's going on.
I don't know if we...
Occam's razor is like, everyone, it's the same as Twitter, which is just start turning off servers and see when they scream.
That's right.
Okay.
And yeah,
but right. That was Twitter.
Yeah, different game.
Yeah. So
different game.
Here we are. Anyway, look, my summary on this is it's the constant narrative with all these technologies. You got to keep your eyes on what they do well and where they can move you and your community along, and try to ignore some of this bigger, larger narrative, because you're about to hear a lot of nonsense about AI in government.
Yeah.
And you're about to hear a lot of foolishness, and just sort of like what I would say is keep your ears open, but there's no fix. There's also no like magic brain that they're going to find all the bad contracts. Like, it's just, there's a lot of hand waving nonsense.
Yeah. And look, go find the bad contracts. But I got to tell you, if I'm a foreign actor, I'm pretty pumped right now.
I hate to say that is real. I think if I'm China and Russia and a bunch of other countries are like,
it's just goofiness. China's already in there. Like China's spy, technologies. They're constantly there. Like, they're constantly been playing there even before this administration.
This is what ideology does. Ideology at the absolute extreme makes us vulnerable because it's monolithic. I'm gonna close with an idea that I've been just rattling around in my head. Okay, so I talked about this. Like, it is an era of large global forces, climate change, the MAGA movement, and sort of a rightward drift in a lot of governments around the world. You also have a progressive urge where you have a lot of things about gender identity and so on coming out, and everyone seems to have a fantasy that they're going to get to put it back in the box. The left seems to think that maybe we let MAGA burn out or it spirals into fascism. The right seems to think that we can make trans people go away by legislating. Everybody seems to have forgotten climate change or assumes that eventually the adults will show up and manage it. And I think we're in an era where nothing's going to go back in the box, and AI is another, a lot of people want AI to go back in the box. We had an event, and I asked somebody, hey, a person who's big in the, sort of doing a lot in the industry, I said, if you could put this away, would you? Right? And they said, a lot of my constituents would love me to, right? But I wouldn't, because I just think it's there and we have to deal with it.
We have to deal with it.
Yeah,
right?
And so all of these things, the right isn't going away, the left isn't going away, gender identities aren't going away,
climate change,
AI, and DOGE is not going away. Elon Musk is going to be there for the rest of our life unless ketamine gets him first. And so, pace yourself, everybody.
Yeah, and I think the overarching theme here is there's a lot of power in our hands, and that could be you in your bedroom in Queens, or you could be an appointed person in government, and I think understanding the implications of it and using it responsibly, I think, is really what's at play here.
And you're going to have to make those decisions for yourself, because right now the guidance from the sort of larger sphere isn't consistent.
It's not. And humans tend to step in shit first and then realize, oh, we should probably put a velvet rope around that shit so no one else steps in it. We just tend to do that. We tend to not anticipate, and we tend to kind of make the mistakes and then fix afterwards. But here we are.
So to me, Richard, and I know this sounds bananas, but this is why I kind of love what we are doing, because what we are doing is about accelerating and getting stuff done very quickly and cheaply so that you can iterate on software over and over and over again until you find the right solution.
Yes.
And the more chaos comes into the world, the more I feel really good about that. Like that, because we're a couple years in, and we're like in about a month or two, we're going to show people kind of take this thing out on the road. But you can make software that solves problems and organizes data in minutes, and you don't even need a board to do it. You can use a lot of different tools to do it.
There's a lot of capabilities out there.
So there's a new set of capabilities in the world that is emerging, and it is exciting and interesting, and it is a way to start to deal with. I don't mean that like, hey, you can go smash MAGA with a board. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can start to organize your world and take control of your world with software and not be dependent on others with these tools.
Yep.
Relatively far away from the government. So we do pay our taxes.
We do.
We pay a lot of taxes.
Hey, maybe things get so messy they won't ask us for any more money.
Well, they're going to reboot the whole system. So
hold down that power button. I'll see you in 5 years.
It's all good until we get the $6 trillion bill in 2033 in whatever Dogecoin hyperinflated nonsense we're in the middle of. All right. So on that note, if you need anything, get in touch. hello@aboard.com. We are building a hell of a software platform. We're very excited to show it to you. It's got AI all the way through, whether that gives you the wiggles or not. And Rich, anything else?
No. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.